audio. All right, here we go. Monetization's already on, so let's get in here. Hello, everybody who's already here. So far, as I know, that only consists of Josh. And hello, everyone watching the recording afterwards. So, we have quite a bit, but it's a lot of smaller, scattered stuff. But we do have some further Iran updates, but I'll get into those in a little bit once I give people enough time to show up. So let me think and take a pick on stuff I want to speak on before getting to that point. Let's see. So, some random Sahel developments, I guess, while we wait for people to show up. Switch over to pink. Excuse me. Did we have to do this? All right, come on. There we go. All right, that's fixed. Let me go back in here. Then we come back out here. Okay. So over in Ouagadougou, capital of Burkina Faso, to the surprise of no one, the champion of the people who conducted the coup a few years back to restore rule of the people to the people has suspended democracy. All the political parties are disbanded, and it's just whatever he says goes now. So hooray, awesome, gotta love it. Also over here in Niamey, capital of Niger, a couple weeks back we had the African version of ISIS. I ISAS, I guess. I'll just say to incorporate Sahel in there or whatever. But they attacked the airport. They damaged a few of the Nigerian military's only aircraft, and the Nigerian military claims they lost nobody in the fight while killing 20 terrorists and capturing 11 others, which is, kind of bogus. So they probably lost like a few dudes, but it was still probably fairly lopsided against ISIS's end. But instead of ISIS, now Niger says it's the attack was actually conducted by France, Benin, and Cote d'Ivoire over here. Uh, I mean, France, Niger will blame France for anything going forward. And a lot of stuff in the past was France's fault, but ISIS being ISIS isn't. I mean, if you want to blame that on anyone, that's kind of that the fault of ISIS's existence kind of would fall on the U.S. and Israel. France didn't really have anything to do with that. But blaming Benin because they don't like Benin, they've had a lot of issues with Benin wanting like tax payments, transit fees for the oil pipeline that runs down through Benin down to the export terminal on the coast. And they've constantly had back and forth disagreements about how much of a share of the revenue Benin should get. So throwing Benin under the blame bus, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Cote d'Ivoire, I don't know, man. Come on, guys. You're just throwing darts at a dartboard at that point. All right, let's see. We getting anybody else? Yes, yes. I literally have a channel introduction video on the channel that you can watch. I'm not going to take time out of a stream to do that. Come on, load YouTube. You can go to the channel itself, and it's supposed to be on home. It shouldn't be showing the stream. Okay. Under normal circumstances, if I'm not the one going to my channel, there will be a channel introduction video that's here on the channel. But apart from all the types of videos and stuff, also, since I usually need an excuse to plug this anyways, under the description of any video from the last few years, you if you go down under the PayPal and Patreon links, there's a free access drive folder link that goes to this Google Drive where I upload and update all kinds of different graphs across all kinds of different subject material that are free to access. They don't look as nice as like graphs on quote unquote professional websites, but since a lot of the stuff on various websites is now constantly being put behind paywalls, even like just generic news is now being put behind paywalls. Like so many of the news orgs are now using the like you can only read 3 or 5 like free pages per month or something, and after that you have to give them anywhere from 10 to 30 bucks a month. So there's all this, and like I said, they don't look as nice as the professional ones, but they will always be free. But anyways, if looks like we have 8 and rising. All right, I'm going to call that enough to start. Where is we need to be over here? Yes. All right, so that's some Sahel related stuff. Now over to the mainline things. So we had a bit of a false alarm regarding the start of the next Iran conflict a few days ago, somewhere around here off the coast or on the coast. One of their gas processing plants has the quick rundown, like all the other times. For anyone who doesn't know, just like oil needs to be refined out into the different components, the different lengths of hydrocarbons. They give you your gaseous ones, then give you your slightly longer ones like gasoline, then give you jet fuel, then give you diesel, and then tar and asphalt. Natural gas also actually needs to undergo a refining process, as it's not just pure methane. It's mostly methane, but about 10% is ethane, and then 1% is composed of various other things. So you got the methane that comes out, then the ethane, and then there's all kinds of other mixtures like sulfurous compounds, propane and butane, nitrogenous compounds. Those need to be separated out, A, because those get used for other things and get sold for money, but also because if you just burn natural gas with all the impurities included, it would not give you the cleanest burn or the most efficient burn. And for the sake of avoiding confusions, because if someone hears a refinery, they're going to think oil. Natural gas refineries are referred to as natural gas processing plants instead. One of the natural gas refineries or processing plants on the coast of Iran did explode a few days ago. However, that was not an airstrike. That was not the start of everything. That was just a case of a catastrophic explosion occurring due to lack of maintenance and parts replacement and everything. As Iran predominantly, before the Ukraine war started, got all of its stuff through Russia, who got all of its stuff from, the outside world, despite denials of that. And after starting the Ukraine invasion, Russia got cut off and has now only been able to get like trickle amounts of stuff either smuggled through third and fourth parties and Chinese made stuff, which has been of less quality. And Russia has predominantly, kept most of it for itself up there as opposed to continuing to supply Iran. So Iran's oil and gas infrastructure has degraded rather quickly, much more so than it would have otherwise. And so now you're getting stuff like this happening, in this case, the random catastrophic explosions. But that was not the start of the conflict. That is still upcoming. supposedly the quote unquote negotiations are happening tomorrow in Oman, where they were supposed to happen before the 12-day war. And supposedly, I'm just going to draw quotation marks here, supposedly, everybody is super close to an epically awesome deal that everybody loves, despite the fact that that's exactly what was said up until the very last second before the 12-day war started back in June of last year. And also, remember, there's the points of this supposed deal are things that Iran would never agree to. For one, they're all no's. Like point number one is that they're supposed to give up all the nuclear related stuff. So no nukes. Point number two is they have to give up their regular missile program. They can't be building and, having large arsenals of just regular missiles. They have to stop all support, supplying, and funding of their various proxy groups and terror cells. So no more influence. And there was a third one, a fourth one that I think was something like they have to allow all of their stuff going in and out to be like constantly inspected and occasionally boarded by third parties to check to make sure if they're in compliance with all the other stuff. None of which Iran would ever agree to under the current the current regime in power. So the point of those points on the bullet list of the deal is that they're there because we know Iran will say no, which is kind of the whole point of the thing in the first place. And all the meanwhile, while this has gone on, we are now on a month or over a month now of flights constantly coming in, apart from the actual inflows of F-15s, F-35s, A-10s, F-16s, and whatever the other stuff was, along with the carrier strike group, and now just additional destroyers and individual naval ships arriving as well. Stuff has continued flowing in, and yet more batteries of anti-air missile defense systems were still continually flown in over even just these last few days since the last stream. So the buildup continues. This is coming. We've made that pretty clear. This has also been a strategic desire of both the US and associated friends in Europe, although they try to deny it, along with a desire of Turkey, along with obviously a desire of Israel, and a desire of Saudi Arabia for quite some time. And now that the Taiwan invasion on China's part is coming up soon, we are trying to speed run stuff and get everything else out of the way as fast as possible so that we can afford to not have resources tied down in various other places around the world once Taiwan starts. As for the actual timing of this, I don't know. Like, we literally could choose to start it any weekend. Supposedly, I've heard from several OSINT accounts elsewhere that based on what they are able to see, at least, based on what's been allowed to be photographed by overflying regular, like, civilian photography satellites, at least, that based on what is there and the current pace of buildup, they seem to think it would not be likely to be at a favorable stance to start an all-out go for it until the middle or later middle of this month. I believe they said whichever weekend is closest to the 16th and or 17th of February. I've seen other random stuff that's less likely, but would not be out of place in the current timeline that we exist in. And that is that supposedly some people have been saying that, I guess, who think that Trump is literally like 100% in like absolute control of everything that happens anywhere, that it's specifically going to start this Sunday night because Trump wants to interrupt and supersede or overtake the Super Bowl with like a big war announcement for the sake of an ego boost, which I mean would would be fitting. That wouldn't be too cartoonish of a thing for Trump to do. But even in the current timeline, that's still a bit too far outside of the stupidity lines to really line up. But you never know. So that's all continuing to build up and get ready. And also make sure I can get both Switzerland and the UAE and Moscow in view, or Moscow's just out of view, but still. So let's get ever neutral. Will help any regime anywhere, no matter how evil that regime has been or not been, to hoard its money. Switzerland, you got Moscow, and you got the UAE, or Dubai specifically. So, apart from the earlier surge about 2 weeks ago, where it was noticed that the Iranian regime had suddenly outwired huge amounts of money to the tune of like tens of billions, they suddenly did another larger surge over the last couple days. So they are seem to be also pretty convinced that there is no way out of this, in which they remain in Iran and remain in power. That is. And also, uh, they've continued they've continued randomly like running up to random oil tankers passing through the lower Persian Gulf and through the Strait of Hormuz. They've continued running up to them in those little speedboat things that are pictured in the thumbnail, and like running up to them, firing some shots in the air and stuff at like with seemingly no specific targets in mind, like not specifically singling out any nations tankers or wanting to go for anything specific. Like the first tanker was a U.S. flagged tanker. The other two belonged to two other random countries, though. So I don't know if that's on like an order on purpose, because that otherwise makes no real sense, or if that's just the Iranian Navy or Coast Guard like starting to just have some fun with it because they're not getting that many direct orders anymore, since the leadership might be a bit too focused on making sure they have a way to bail out when the time comes for it. All right, that's the total composition of that. What do you mean you didn't know we still use A10s? Of course we still use A10s. Bro, even as ridiculous as it is to source Call of Duty, even in the Call of Duty games that take place in like 2075, we're still using the A10. Like the A10 is epic so long as you have annihilated your enemy's air capabilities, which is, the first phase of any US or NATO plus friend groups like military doctrine. The Once you have annihilated your enemy's air capabilities, then you can just safely let the A10 roam free. The A10 is amazing. I never had my wisdom teeth pulled. I also never got the cavities fixed that I developed back in 2018. I just started brushing and flossing my teeth better, predominantly because, again, I no longer have my old job. back up home in Fairbanks, so I'm not making 8 grand a year plus anymore. I'm down here in Charleston, South Carolina, where getting one cavity fixed is apparently $1,350, versus back up home. Back up home, I could actually afford that to begin with, but also back up home, my health care was like kind of free. It was like 3/4 free, sort of. We have a really weird hybrid state system back up home. But for me to get a cavity fixed back up home, it would have been like 250 or so, at the guy that I would have gone to. But so I quite literally have not been able to afford to have any of that done since then. So those cavities are, theoretically still there. I mean, by all means, if I ever do actually have enough money to where I feel I can safely dispose of 1350 multiple times to fix 3 cavities, then I will do so. I won't just leave them there forever. But it's been quite a long time since I've been in any such state of financial security. Okay, let's see. So that's the Iran stuff. While we're here with the U.S. and Mexico, we'll do all the U.S. and Mexico stuff, I guess. So continued outflow from China. This time specifically GMC, the large automobile manufacturer. GMC is now in the process of quickly trying to relocate their the production that they had going on in China back into the U.S. specifically, as they're one of the last ones in the line. They were, I guess, taking their time compared to some other companies in trying to get stuff out of China, while the window is still there. Since I guarantee you, major and like critical companies were probably told by Washington some time ago, at least a few years ago, that this is a thing that is legitimately coming, and they need to start getting out and relocate their production. So many companies, relocated a bunch of stuff to Mexico. Other companies built new factories and started doing stuff in uh, way down there in India, Vietnam, etc. GMC apparently is going to be migrating what production they had going on in China specifically back to underutilized factories in the U.S. that have been running at lower numbers since the 80s and 90s, when everything started moving out. So those factories already exist. So that won't be as long term or slow of a process as building new factories. So they have to do at those is probably do more like modernized upgrading and retrofitting, and those will be a lot easier to work with. But on the subject of Mexico, Mexico is continuing to get the windfall from so much stuff, as predicted. Colombia, which was the pick of some others, is not the pick. I don't know why Peter Zion, especially since he's supposed to be like a economic professional genius, is like so ham-fistedly heavy on Colombia. It was always going to be Mexico. Okay, Colombia did get a soap factory. Dial Soap moved their bar soap production to Colombia, but that's about it. Mexico is continuing to get the majority of the relocation stuff and just new stuff in general now as BMW is expanding, is seeing increased purchases and expanding their production in Latin America, vehicle models specifically designed for sale in Latin America. And the location that they have chosen to uh, make their newest factory to produce those models for the Latin American market is Mexico. And Hyundai, the South American or the South Korean automobile manufacturer, is starting up a new line, a new design of hybrid engines for hybrid vehicles. And the locale where that factory is, as it's a factory that already existed that they've been working on an expansion of, and that expanded areas where these engines will be produced. That factory is in Mexico. And let's see, we have a roughly up in this area. I forgot the exact locales, but this is where a lot of the mining takes place, anyways. A large gold mine is getting a massive expansion of operations in the second half of this year, and a new large silver mine to the tune of apparently its height of production, once it's been up and running for about 2 or 3 years, will cap out around 17 million ounces per year, before then falling by the assumed usual 5 to 10% per year. But a massive new silver mine of such size will be starting up in the second half of this year as well. As the stuff is built and most of the overburden rock has been removed now. And when, for those not in the know, as usual, when a specific type of ore is specified, for the most part, especially when dealing with zinc and lead, and then the precious metals, excluding the platinum metals, though, for the most part at least, when I specify something like this is a silver mine, what that means is that that's the primary target metal. That's what's in the highest concentration relative to its normal concentration in the surrounding rock that attracted the mining company. Other stuff is always there with it, like there is gold and copper and etc. that will be accompanying that silver, and likewise accompanying that gold up in the gold mine. It's just that the one that is specified is the one that, relative to its normal concentration in the crust, is at the highest abnormal concentration and is thus the quote unquote target metal of that specific mine. But other stuff is always acquired and refined and sold with it. Is there anything else in the Americas? No, but I will again comment on, because this leads into the EU one. Actually, I'll check chat first to be responsible. I did not know anyone was doing one in New York. I knew there were several being made in Iowa and Idaho, and one really stupidly, because Intel is really stupid, being built in Arizona. I did not know there was one being built in New York, but I guess there is. I know there's one in Mexico that was just completed actually, and suppose is starting this month. Actually, uh, is going to actually start outputting processors literally this month. Uh, and let's see, the other new ones around the world that I don't remember which one is at which stage. Okay, so don't ask or quote me. There is going to be one in Germany, one in Poland, one in Turkey, a couple in India, one in Thailand, a couple in Vietnam, and a whole bunch in Malaysia. Oh, and an expanded portion of an already existing semiconductor or processor fab lab or production plant that already existed in Singapore and expanded additional portion of one to increase output just came online a couple weeks ago in Singapore as well. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to do. So the U.S. just publicly, they started doing stuff before this, but made the big public, get likes on Twitter announcement about the stockpiling of rare earth metals a little while ago, since, China is no longer the source of 90% of the world's rare earth metals. It is still, unfortunately, the source of about 50% of them for the moment. So that is an issue. And similar to how China has been over importing oil, gold, and silver to shore up its strategic fuel reserves and its financial reserves ahead of their upcoming intended invasion, either most likely this fall or fall of next year. The US has now started doing the same for the one threat item on that is on the threat list, which would be rare earths. So started over importing rare earths, which has contributed to the massive rare earth price surge, and associated critical metals that aren't technically rare earths, like germanium, for example. So the U.S. has started over importing those ahead of time, along with quietly dumping money into otherwise not really profitable operations that are going to now be starting. One already started in Brazil, and there's one in Chile that's going to be starting up soon. Now, now also there is uh, over here in over here in southeastern Kazakhstan, there is a large iron mining operation, and the Kazakhstan is only really after the iron. The However, the U.S. and Kazakhstan have now entered an agreement, and the U.S. has begun purchasing and will be importing the waste material, the tailings from that iron mine, as the tailings, the waste rock that is not iron ore, but from that iron mine, it does actually contain a fair deal of rare earths. They would not otherwise be economical to mine, which is why Kazakhstan, despite the fact that it's digging up that ore anyways, doesn't actually care enough to produce them or to refine them. The U.S. is buying that waste off of, taking that off of Kazakhstan's hands uh, at cost. And again, this is not something that is otherwise economical. So this is entirely a at cost strategic venture. The EU now just made their public announcement that they are doing, or in reality have been doing, the same thing, over importing, which is now that they've been doing the same thing as well, that now also kind of stacks on reasonably to the obscene rare earth price jumps over the last number of months. So they are over importing as well. And they, similar to the US doing a money dump, have quietly dumped money, some of which had to go to bribes, of course, but have quietly dumped money into South Africa to get a rare earth operation startup going there that would not have gone through otherwise. And so that will be coming online shortly. There's one underway in Namibia, and there is already a large operation in Australia, but there's an expansion to that that is coming online soon. There are operations in Vietnam and Thailand that are under expansion at the moment as well. And oh yeah, and I forgot the stuff at Mountain Pass in California is also itself under expansion work. Although though that I don't think that'll be completed for a little bit, but that is underway. But so yeah, the EU is now doing the same thing ahead of this happening. As once that happens, both for stuff both going into China, oil, gas, gold, silver, and stuff coming out, uh, appliances, manufactured stuff, rare earths, etc. There's all of this around this general area. No shipping company is going to willingly go through that area. So China will not by its choice stop exporting or importing stuff because it kind of needs to keep its exports going because that's what a huge chunk of its economy is based on. But it is going to be heavily restricted to stuff going out of its northern ports and out of these very narrow ways, and maybe stuff to the west of Hainan Island there. So it's not, and the same for stuff that they would normally import large amounts of going in as well. So it's not that they are going to completely get cut off from stuff or they are going to completely stop trying to export anything, but the capacity at which stuff can go in and out of China while they are attempting to take Taiwan is going to, during that time period, become extremely bottlenecked. Okay, now let's see. Since I mentioned Kazakhstan because of the iron mine, rare earth tailing stuff, we'll mention a few Kazakhstan things again after I check chat. Let's see. Just, all right, just a plant location. All right, so Kazakhstan. I forgot the exact locations, so don't take the X's to mean anything. I'm just putting an X near Astana and one down near where I think Almaty is, like down in the south in general. But Kazakhstan is already uh, has already started not the actual nuclear plant construction itself. They're just doing the initial ground clearing and foundation stuff at the moment, but they are underway on starting to build their first nuclear power plant, which will be between 1 and 2 gigawatts. So they're not going that big at first. They also uh, finally put the stamp on approval for operations to start a second one that supposedly will also be between 1 and 2 gigawatts. So Kazakhstan, power-wise, is going nuclear. Finally, another country actually dropping the propaganda and getting intelligent. Almaty is down there, right? That's Astana, Karaganda. Almaty is supposed to be around here. Come on. Almaty, there you go. Okay, that is right on the border. That's further than I thought. And we also have some variety of good news in a few places. So in Ghana, as for Ghana, despite the normal assumption by somewhat informed Americans about the outside world is that people would pronounce the vowels the way that they were originally meant to be pronounced. That's why a lot of people assume the country's name is Ghana. And in a lot of cases, that informed assumption would be right, but Ghana is a exception. Uh, the people of that country, all of those that I have heard at least, do not use the heavy vowel sounds, and they do not actually put a lot of power or emphasis in any of the syllables. They actually have tended Every time I've heard them, from their leader speaking to regular Ghanaians in videos on YouTube, they have always they always say it actually really unemphasized and like kind of quietly. It's just gonna. So they the country is kind of split in half by a bit of a river here, but then it turns into, this giant lake, Lake Volta, that goes up like that and then splits into a few. And so one of the things that always hinders functionality, economic development, etc., is any lack of interconnectivity or ease of travel for both people and stuff. When stuff has to stop at some portion of a lake and either take all the time to cross on a ferry or drive all the way around, obviously that slows stuff down. And I could not actually find a location for it, but Lake Volta, or the river itself, only has up until now, at least, it only had two like real bridges going across it. And when I say real bridge, I mean like legitimate, like real bridge. I'm drawing the Cape Cod Sagamore Bridge because I'm biased, but like an actual bridge, multiple lanes, typically a railway like portion of it as well. There are many other bridges along it, but they're like wooden bridges that if you look at it and think your vehicle is going to crash through down into the river below, you're probably right. Some of them are even like hanging wooden bridges, and some of them are like actual concrete bridges, but they're like really thin, just like one prop, one lane stuff. A third, a third legitimate bridge is actually now under construction. I could not find the actual location along the Volta, but a third legitimate bridge is now under construction. And Ghana has now banned rando permitless forest mining. As up to this point, apparently you could just like go into the forest and just cutting stuff down and dig a pit with essentially no like permitting process, no approvals or anything. You could just start digging, doing whatever. That has now actually been banned. And while some specific large operations by actual mining companies will probably still be allowed after approval processes, that the actual amount of it and the deforestation associated with it is going to drastically collapse now, thankfully, because previously it was just like an open thumbs up. You could just go do it if you felt like it. Over here in Somalia, we had some infiltration attempt by additional members of the African branch of ISIS, but with some U.S. and Turkish combined drone strikes, that attempted migration of some ISIS fighters in across the border was stopped via atomization. And now that since Somalia has become so stable after the big 2022 or 2023 anti-militant operation where they retook like 90% of the country from the various insurgent and militant groups that held it. Since Somalia has become so much more stable and functional now, the border with Kenya is actually, for the first time in so many years, is open again. And actual crossings, trade and people both included, are now actually happening. So Somalia is continuing to march forward into broader reintegration with the world at large as a whole. Now, Still probably not going to be doing that with Ethiopia for a while, especially since Ethiopia is starting to, you know, go mask off and go a little ham wild with things they intend to do but may or may not do. But at least since the border with Djibouti is up in the Somaliland portion, that will technically fall to the separatist Somaliland governments about that. But for regular Somalia and including Somaliland as a whole, the border with Kenya is now actually back up and running as a friendly cross country thing. Oops, no, supposed to clear that. Delete, back to the mouse. Speaking of Ethiopia, we got some Ethiopia stuff that happened too. Okay, let's see. uh, I mean, maybe I don't really see how they could pull that off though, because I mean they don't have like the people of Somalia and Somaliland are not like that. They're not like the Houthis in Yemen or the various militia groups like in Western Iraq. They're not literally hanging on like the payment puppet strings of Israel and Turkey. So it would be a bit difficult to pull that off. And I mean the only like way that would play out is if for it to be a proxy war and not a conflict between Israel and Turkey, which Turkey would not want to start because they know what's going to happen if someone with like actual military capability attempts to attack Israel. That's going to result in the America option happening. Uh, the only way that would play out as a proxy war is like literally trying to get Somaliland and Somalia to fight each other, which I mean, yeah, they have the whole separatist angle in Somaliland, but I've yet to see Somalis and Somalilanders, I guess. I've yet to see any, at least online, because that's obviously the only place I see them down here. At least there were actual Somalis who lived up in Fairbanks, Alaska, back up home. They were some of my security coworkers back at the university, but I've yet to see any Somalis or Somalilanders who want to fight each other. Like I've seen them disagree in comment sections online about like how about whether or not southern Somalia or regular Somalia is stable enough now for to allow for reunification. But I've seen nothing that seems to incline them to like be willing to actually fight each other. Especially now that it would kind of, if that did happen, it would kind of be blatantly obvious that they were fighting each other on streams for somebody else's behalf. Uh, but in terms of Ethiopia, so everybody remembers Ethiopia went mask off quite a while ago, did the whole genocide thing in Tigray. About 2 million people died. Although Ethiopia for a while switched that to a T. Ethiopia for a while, ever since then, has been trying to wave it away and excuse it by saying that it wasn't 2 million people, it was only 600,000. Oh, wait, point 0.6, that would still need an M because that's 0.6 million. Now they've switched up. So, as of a few days ago, now the Ethiopian government is saying that actually, yeah, the genocide did happen, but it was Eritrea who did it, apparently, and that the Ethiopian military was, I guess, trying to stop it. And so uh, maybe this is now going to be put on the plate as like part of their reasoning they offer up to the population. I'm just going to keep drawing question marks uh, for possibly going to war with and or invading Eritrea. That maybe that's what they're going to go with as part of like the justification is by switching up the story from yeah we did it but we only killed 600,000 to actually yeah it was 2 million but it was Eritrea that killed them, it wasn't us, so we need to invade Eritrea and get revenge or something. So I guess that's what they want to run with now. We'll have to see as that plays out further. I have no idea, don't ask me time wise, I have no idea when they would intend to do something either to Eritrea or to Somaliland. But again, with the whole Egypt like potentially bombing the dam thing, the best time for them to do it, if they do intend to do such a thing, the best time would probably be when all the big Taiwan episode is happening, because we will be so heavily poured into that, not just the U.S., but also the European powers, along with other associated friends as well. Will be so heavily poured into that that, you know, various countries elsewhere will probably see those few months as like their grand golden window to do something drastic and still partially get away with it. And for the most part, they would be correct in making that assumption that that will be like the one golden window they'll have in a long time where they can probably do something extreme and get away with it. So that assumption is not wrong. Although the length of extremes people can go to that they will be allowed to get away with will still have limits. But Ethiopia invading Eritrea, as long as Ethiopia then doesn't, not that it has the means to anyway, but as long as it then doesn't try to do anything regarding like the Red Sea and passage of goods and stuff in the general area, as long as it doesn't intend to like do anything, then yeah, collective, the at least the collective U.S. plus EU plus East Asian friends plus Gulf allies will probably not really do anything. Uh, if Egypt bombs that dam during the quote unquote golden window, that one, I said this before a few streams ago, that one we probably would kind of pretend to punish them for. It probably like demands their their leaders like get ousted, or like I don't know, pretend to pull a Maduro maneuver on them. But in reality, they'd probably just end up living in like a penthouse in Dubai, and just like how Maduro is supposedly in prison in New York, but in reality, he's probably in a penthouse in a Trump building or something. But yeah, actually, when Taiwan happens during the brief window that will last for, that's actually a time frame when probably quite a lot of people are going to pull something real quick, because they're going to correctly assume that they'll probably, for the most part, be allowed to get away with it. Although like I said, there are limits, obviously. Like no one gets to nuke anybody and get away with it, but people in especially in countries like, you know, say Central African Republic that nothing happening in there disrupts the global system. So that's why the system wouldn't really flinch. People in places where they know they won't be disrupting the system by doing anything, and thus the system won't care, might use that golden Taiwan window to, do some genocide real quick. Okay, let me chug some water. Let's see. Nothing from chat. No super chats or anything otherwise as well. All right, fifth. Yeah, we got up to 15, 18. We're back down to normal numbers. The weird extreme popularity of like 64 viewers seems to have passed. I don't know what was causing that. Uh, that was there anything else? I did look into some of the stuff that was mentioned last time. So in South Sudan, the civil war never actually really ended. It kind of froze a bit, and this is not even remotely how the map looks. I'm just drawing random lines. There's like random portions that are controlled by the government, and then there's random portions that are controlled by the separatist groups or the opposition groups. What happened was last week. Apparently, the government, the actual South Sudanese military, restarted operations to attempt to retake the various regions that the opposition or separatists are holding. But the fighting has now resulted in the disruption of food distribution and medicine distribution. Let's see, specifically to the region of Jonglei. So I don't remember which region that is. This does not have the regions labeled. Oh, here we go. You just had to go in further. Where is Jonglei? Jonglei. There we go. So this region here has had food and medicine distribution disrupted because of the fighting, which is, if it continues for more than just a few months, the expectations are it will probably result in preventable mass infection and preventable mass starvation deaths of anywhere from 200,000 up to 500,000 people. So, more fun party hat times. We'll see how it goes, whether the fighting actually goes on for that long or not. Let's see. There was some Russia-Ukraine stuff, some stuff not actually related to drone or missile strikes. A crane coming over from the east with a bunch of rail cars full of refined gasoline derailed and exploded because gasoline is the most explosive of the fuels. So that was a big boom and a fire that is still going and producing a lot of toxic air and stuff. No known cause for that. And let's see, also Belgorod over here was put into a blackout again by more drone strikes. And over in Khabarovsk, or is it Khabarovsk or Zabaykalsky? Over here in eastern Siberia, in the Far East, the small city of Chita went into blackout and heat out, apparently, because the primary one big thermal power plant that they rely on for combined heating and power had a catastrophic explosion and fire. And this is well outside of the range of any of Ukraine stuff. So this is just part of the ongoing cascade of failure of Russian infrastructure. And not much happening in response to it yet. Kind of getting more cement towards the previously acknowledged the previously like understood idea, but now like becoming dangerously solidified idea that Moscow really just does not care about anyone out east, anybody east of the Urals. They probably could all die, and Moscow would their Moscow's care level would be -5. Let's see. Largest real estate company, real estate company has had a swift speed run downturn into bankruptcy, apparently, as through most of last year, or at least the first half of it, they were a money lender, as not just banks in Russia issue loans. Large enough corporations can also hand out loans, but actual like property sales have dropped by such an extent that the largest real estate firm there went from a loan issuer to plunging into negatives and is now begging the government for money. And the descent was just remarkably quick. So that's the only reason why that one in particular is a part of the list of stuff. Okay. Was there anything else? Oh, yeah. Kazakhstan restarted the Tengiz field, the portions that were shut down due to that fire. So that should put them, that had dropped them down back to under about 1.9. That should put them back up to around 2.1 million barrels per day for oil production. So there's that. And what else was going on that I might have forgotten about? Uh, I don't think there was really anything else, but I do have that creeping feeling that I forgot something like usual. I'm just roaming over various countries to see if anything springs into mind, but I'm not really getting anything. You guys have anything? Uh, I mean, it doesn't. Ethiopia doesn't have to recognize Somaliland. It already has. It already has access. They already have the a agreement that they're allowed to use the port of Berbera, so they can do that whenever they want. But as for like potentially invading someone, if the sea access thing really is the reason, then the reason they'd be doing that is because they want like a portion of coast that is actually like theirs, that is Ethiopia, and that they can then flood with like whatever military personnel they want, not with equipment and vehicles because they don't really have any of those, but that they could then like have actual claim to, and not just like a slip of paper granting them permission to use somebody else's coastline. Now, that is, you know, 1800s and further past thinking, because we've in the present age, for the most part, almost everyone has gone along with and stuck to the general like business agreement model of things. But if any particular country or power like feels that insecure in relying on that, then they might feel like grabbing, I don't know, I'm just going to use this bit for an example, this like south bit of Eritrea, say, they might feel like grabbing some tiny bit of something so that they can have an actual like coast that is quote unquote theirs, at least on their maps, and have like actual control over that, as opposed to just granted permission to use somebody else's, someone else who could then, you know, deactivate that permission at any particular moment of their choosing. Okay. I think that's probably close to it then, because I can't really think of anything else. I apologize that the various, the initial like monthly data stuff videos are going to be later than usual. Again, there was a partial shutdown for a few days, so that delayed some stuff. The monthly non-OPEC oil data did get released today. The MCS 2026, the annual mining output levels for different metals and minerals around the world that the USGS publishes, that has still not been properly released. So I'm still waiting on that. That got delayed as well. So I apologize for those. I have no control over that, but I'll try to do the monthly oil one soon, have that up this weekend, and hopefully either tomorrow or early next week, the USGS will actually release the MCS 2026 data. But I have no idea of their inner schedule workings or how close that actually is. It got pulled by the standards of the people in South Carolina who I'm surrounded by, and they panicked and like were stocking up on food and water in terror. Like, you know, it was like they were gonna about to go into like some 3 week long South Africa style national blackout or whatever, and did get close to the like cap threshold of how much power the Carolinas combined grid can actually output, but still avoided it and actually came closer to the threshold on a particular day back in summer of 2024. Actually came within like 3% of the upper limit. But a bunch of stuff like shut down because a couple centimeters of snow fell that then the stuff on the roads at least instantly melted. So there was no reason for anything to actually shut down, but they shut a bunch of stuff down. I really miss home. It was so, Fairbanks is so awesome. We had nothing ever shuts down ever, like negative 56 degrees outside. Uh, the the buses still ran. They were you know, free. I've said that before. I just flash my Alaska card and just step on the bus. Water was free, heating was free. Healthcare was like 3/4 free. Benefits of being in a state that actually has money because of oil and mining revenue taxes, and of a state that is quote unquote conservative and leans, you know, Christian, but actually kind of leans into like the values of Christianity, not the values of American conservatism that are masqueraded as supposed values of Christianity. But yeah, yeah, I think even the night we got that mega blizzard in 2015, where it was 2 feet over the course of like 12 hours, that didn't even stop the flights out of Fairbanks Airport. The the plowers just every half hour would just clear the runway, and the dudes were like super talented. You have the trucks, and because I left on one of those nights to go visit my parents for Christmas, the dudes running those trucks were like super precision coordinated. No, none of your stupid AI required. They, human beings, by line of sight, lined up like their plows, basically right against each other and partially like just overlapping each other, and would just keep doing a down the runway clear like every half hour or so. Ugh. Let's see. I mean, for backup in Fairbanks, it was usually between like -10 and -40 for about 2 months straight. For January through February, it usually stayed below -10 for the most part, except for a few days where it would spontaneously go back up to like the teens or the 20s above zero, and we'd get like another foot of snow, and then it would return back to normal. Right, but if that's it and uh, there's nothing else or no super chats or anything, then I'm going to stop. So I'll wait like 30 seconds for the stream delay thing. They clean the screen off too. I have been to Canada a few times. Granted, that was a long time ago. That was back before I did the traveling myself. That was actually back with that was back when I was still a teenager. So that was my parents taking me places with them on their money. But I've been to Vancouver and BC, and I've been around uh, well, lower Ontario and the Niagara Falls area. I would want to go out to Nova Scotia, and I would if they still had these, but they stopped doing them. Uh, I don't know why, but because your government hates me, I guess. They stopped doing the tours of the salt mines, the Windsor salt mines. They're like 1,800 feet down under I'll call it the seabed. Under the seabed of Lake Huron, there are ancient layers of salt deposits that are mines, long descent mining elevators, and there are room and pillar like forklift sized mining grinder vehicles that they drive around mining up the salt, and that is 1,800 feet under the Lake Huron seabed. But nope, they don't do those anymore. So apart from Niagara Falls still existing, Ontario is like deleting any reasons I would have ever had for wanting to visit it. You know, but if Ontario wants to keep self-destructing, they can. I'll go to Vancouver or to Nova Scotia instead. All right. That is it then, it looks like. So I will see everybody around next time.